Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode. Today, I'm joined by a good friend of mine, Alessia Priolo, who has joined me in the past on this podcast, and today she's here to talk about her organization called Dreamstate Agency. Alessia, welcome. Nice to
Thank you
speak.
so
Nice to see
much.
you.
Thank you for
Um,
inviting me, and thanks to everyone who follows the podcast. Great work that you've been doing with it, by the way.
Oh, thanks a lot. Absolutely. It's really nice to speak with you again. You're always doing many interesting things, so it's great to catch up once in a while and see what the latest is. And last time that you were on with me, we spoke a lot about the Syncopated Noise
Yep.
Foundation, which I participated in to some degree, helping out with certain
No, you were a
events.
big part of it.
Oh well, it was a team effort for sure, but you were like definitely a great leader for that
Thank
organization.
you.
Very focused on helping indie musicians um, in our city, but also across Canada.
Hmm.
So that was great. But you've since shifted gears and have placed more focus on the Dreamstate Agency, which is a marketing agency, which I understand.
Hmm.
So tell me about that. Why the shift to Dreamstate? What is Dreamstate for those who aren't familiar with it? And like, what are your big projects for this new organization?
Yeah, sure. So I'm not sure if you heard the quote, you don't choose your passions choose you. So that's basically what happened. I've been doing different things throughout the years, whether it was event production. I actually studied science in university, and then I went like a full 360-degree change in my career, just exploring different things. Because how else are you supposed to figure out what you like and what you're good at if not trying different things and see what works, see what you enjoy doing? So that's what I did. My career has just been evolving. It's been a roller coaster for the past couple of years. With starting off with the nonprofit Syncopated Noise Foundation, which is really great. We did a lot of really great things even during the pandemic for musicians. And yeah, I just really decided to explore different passion that I had, which was basically branding, graphic design, content creation, web design. I was always kind of doing these things also for the nonprofit. And that's kind of how I got my foot into this field, into marketing. I really started doing like a lot of the content, basically doing everything for the nonprofit. And then over the years, I said, you know what? I had the company Dream State registered around 2018, but it went through a process of evolution. I was doing before some like streaming services, event production, and then I decided, you know what? I think my passion really lies in like marketing, creative marketing, and I've always been passionate about like the journey of like entrepreneurship. It's just such a crazy journey. And I started working with a lot of like entrepreneurs, and over the past few months, I've been really taking the time to speak to them, see what the challenges are, what are the things that they're struggling the most with. And they told me like it was really like creating content, because nowadays you really have to be everywhere. You have to have a solid online presence in order to market your business. So yeah, and I think there was a shift during the pandemic where a lot of people quit their jobs and started
Mm.
their business. Like it's been an ongoing trend. Like every day I see somebody that's like, oh, I quit my high paying job and I decided to do my own thing. So I really took the time to see, okay, like what's happening? Like, what is this movement? Because people always tend to take the path of least resistance. They'll always go for the easier path, right? Something
Hmm.
that's easy, that they know, that's comfortable. And then over the past few months, I've just been seeing so many people just like venture into entrepreneurship. And obviously the biggest challenge is being your own boss, like you have to do everything. So with Dream State, my goal is really to help entrepreneurs and provide them support with the marketing, the branding. And I didn't really, it's not something that I necessarily like studied. It's something that just came to me naturally, and I really did a lot of work to really perfection it, like just like a lot of reading, a lot of learning, and studying like psychology of colors, like how things work, because it's so important. It's so important to have like a strong brand, and to really for it to reflect what it is you're doing, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's basically what I've been doing with Dream State, and it's been a journey, and I'm really happy with everything that, the direction that it's going. And I've been connecting with so many really great entrepreneurs, and it's great. It's like a community. I've never seen this level of support from other people that are willing to share like their sales process, their marketing process, their pricing. Like it's crazy.
Hmm.
Like it's such a collaborative environment where, because everyone's kind of doing their own thing, and they know how hard it is, they're willing to help and provide advice. So it's been really great. The past 2 months have been really exciting.
That's great. It's been cool to see your development, and I've been following closely, especially the things that you've been posting on LinkedIn, which I kind of scoured your page before this interview. So I took a
Of
lot of
course.
notes on things that you've posted recently, which really resonated with me. So I'll bring some of those up as we
Yeah,
go.
sure.
But I think that you really hit it with the shift that's happened. A lot of people leaving their jobs and starting their own things. And the cool thing about entrepreneurship in general is that it spans so many different categories and
Yeah.
everything. Like I've spoken to a lot of people in the
Hmm.
music space, which you're very
Yep.
integrated in as well. And a couple people who've left, as you said, high-paying jobs to start their, pursuing their passion for music full time.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, you know, it, and then just other types of career shifts as well, like people going from like touring musicians to, starting their own kind of online business
Oh
because they,
yeah, there's been a lot of that, especially because like the music industry was hit so hard during the pandemic, and so many people just decided to try other things. But honestly, the shift has been huge. So many people just leaving their jobs and starting and taking like the hard path. I guess COVID kind of made it realize that like life is short,
yeah,
and you kind of need to be doing something that you're passionate about. And I also realized like a lot of businesses they did kind of like move online. And I also feel like because it's online, like you kind of lost a little bit that like touch with people. And it felt like there was not a lack of respect, but like there's things that you wouldn't necessarily say in person to somebody, but that people would get away with saying online.
yeah.
And I think people really felt that, it's like I feel like there's been like a bit of a disconnect. But yeah, just to say that like yeah, people are not taking shit anymore from people. They're it's just the level of tolerance for being treated like shit, like it's just not there anymore. It's
Yeah, well, I kind of see it in two ways where, you do lose the personal connection with people when
Mhm.
you're interacting online, but then also you kind of get the unfiltered version of what people are thinking about you, right?
Yeah,
Because they
true.
don't hold back. So you get more
Yeah,
honesty, right?
exactly. It's true. And I think that's what made also people realize like, okay, like why am I doing this to myself? Like life is short and it is the time to take the risk and also like spending a lot more time at home and having that level of flexibility. People realize like, okay, great, I'm working from home and I have that flexibility, but now I want to go to the next step, which is I don't really want to be building somebody else's dream. I want to build my own. So
Right.
it's really been a shift of like going to a more like comfortable lifestyle from working from home, but also realizing like, okay, now I want more.
Okay, so yeah, living the more comfortable lifestyle, but then with the added discomfort of venturing
Yeah.
out onto your own, taking your own path. And I want to pull something that I took off of one of your
Hmm.
posts, which was kind of counterintuitive, made me think a little bit. Um, you said betting on yourself might be the safest bet you can make
Yeah.
in the context of like the economy right now, how there's layoffs happening in various industries, and that nobody's job feels like 100% secure.
Hmm.
Anything can happen at any time. But if you make that investment in yourself, it could be a safer option than putting all of your cards in another company's basket. So, well, like, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, with the current layoffs, there's been so many people losing their jobs recently, especially in the tech industry. And those were jobs people thought were safe, like, I was a safe, comfortable job in the tech industry. It's growing, it's a growing field, obviously. And then a lot of people also lost their jobs because of AI. So that was another huge thing that happened, right? With AI, like a lot of, like copywriters, like a lot of people like in specific industries that were really afraid of losing their jobs that figured out, okay, like what's my plan B? Like what else can I do? So yeah, I think that also was another reason why people realize like, comfort in a job doesn't really exist anymore in this day and age because the economy is so unstable. And yeah, so you really need to be able to do other things. You really need to think hard about like, what else can I do? Like if I lose my job tomorrow, what can I do? What can I bring to the table? And I mean, people say that you're supposed to leave your job when you can reach at least 60 to 70% of your income by doing your side hustle, and
Hmm.
then you leave your job. Like that's what people say.
Hmm.
But those are the same people who didn't do that. Like usually the people who say like, yeah, you reach 60 to 70% are also people that didn't follow their own advice and just like quit their job for whatever reason, because of burnout, because of whatever the reason was, and they just went in like full on. I
Right.
think honestly, I think that's the only way to do it. Like you can be building your side hustle to a certain point. That's the ideal situation. But let's face it, like you don't always have that opportunity. And if you're privileged enough to be able to quit your job and start your business, and you have, you have savings and you're able to do that, then I think that's the best way, because you can just focus the best hours of your day to building your business into like a profitable, business that's not just a side hustle. And that doesn't stop you from doing other things in and around that. You can still like take other, like, you have to diversify your income, of course. You can't just focus on one thing. But I do believe that you kind of need to go all in.
Yeah, I am with you there. The thing that I try to emphasize to people, uh, particularly like with my podcast, one of my big goals is just to encourage the people who haven't gotten started yet.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have a big dream, there's stuff that you love to do and you're
Yeah.
not doing it. And I want everybody to try and not be afraid of failing. And even if it has to be a part-time thing, even if it's a side hustle that you
Yeah.
can only devote 5 hours a week
That's
to,
fine too.
that's better than nothing. That's a starting spot. And
Exactly.
honestly, that's kind of what I'm doing,
Yeah.
to be very honest with you at this point. Not to say that I don't aspire to make it a full-time thing down the road,
Maybe
but
one day it can be, but that's also great, like if it's something that makes you happy, at the end of the day, that's the goal, right? Like it
yes.
doesn't matter if you do 10%, if it doesn't matter if it's 100%, like some people like if it works for you, like you should just continue doing what you're doing. But as long as, like you said, like you're doing something that you're passionate about and that gives you purpose, I think that's the goal. Because at the end of the day, we're the ones that are gonna look back and say, oh, I wish I did that. Like, who cares about everybody else's opinion? At the end of the day, like you're gonna look back at your life and say, I could have tried, I could have taken the risk. So I mean, it must really suck to have that kind of, regret. So that's what I didn't want to have. I didn't want to have the regret. And like, if you think of it, what's the worst thing that could happen? You go back to the job market, like after that kind of experience of having built your business, like who's gonna not hire you?
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. So there's something that you mentioned about devoting your energy, 100% of your energy to the thing that you're passionate about. And that's something
Mm-hmm.
that resonates with me because, it's a struggle when you're doing something on the side. A lot of your best hours of the day get devoted to your main job, and then whatever's
Yeah.
left over kind of gets devoted to
It's
the
the
side
leftover
hustle.
energy you have from your full-time job. So it takes a lot to do that, to devote like the best hours of your day to your full-time job, and then whatever's left to your side hustle. But it's feasible. Like if you're passionate about it, I think you should definitely do that.
Right.
Yeah.
And it ties into something that you've mentioned that I've read from one of your posts about productivity and
Mm-hmm.
how taking breaks is an essential part of
Yeah.
productivity. It's not something that's obvious to everybody
Yeah.
because taking a break feels like you're not getting anything done. But I know from experience that when I don't give myself breaks, mental breaks
Yeah.
particularly,
Yeah.
I can waste like hours of my day being unproductive or distracted or
Exactly.
just not doing quality work because I didn't take that 1 hour away to recharge. And some of my best ideas also come when I'm not working, like when I'm going for a walk or just, like
Yeah.
shower thoughts or whatever, those
Exactly.
types of
Me too.
things. Right. So
Yeah.
how come people don't get this? Like what needs to click for people to understand that taking breaks is as important as doing work?
To be honest, when you're working towards your passion and building your dream, you don't look at the time. That's the issue. That's the main issue I have. Time just flies by. I don't even see the difference between one day and another. It's just one thing. I just don't have the time to think about it. And sometimes like, I start working and like it's all of a sudden it's 8 p.m. and I'm still working. And sometimes I'm like, oh wow, like I've barely taken any breaks. So I guess it's like really hard to get into the habit of thinking like, okay, did I take a break? Did I eat? Did I drink water? you know, because you're so like like it really becomes everything. It really becomes such a huge part of your life. And I guess that's the challenge, because you really need to learn to like disconnect. And I'm still not good at it. It's something that I'm really like working towards. And the same thing happened to me. Like if one day I'm like, okay, you know what, I'm tired, but I'm still gonna work through the day. And then like that day is not going to be as productive as I want it to be, because if you're mentally tired, you're not going to be able to do the work.
Right.
And being an entrepreneur, you're pretty much doing everything. You're doing the marketing, you're doing the sales, you have client calls, you're dealing with like, discovery calls, you have to go out there and network because it's super important. So you're doing so many different things. And like if you don't kind of schedule in your breaks, and that's what I'm going to start doing, it becomes like really hard to disconnect.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's other elements to that too, like focus, for example.
Mm-hmm.
When like I mean, for me, something that I try to do as much as possible is to be like as intentional as I can be with the work that I'm
Yeah.
doing. So if
Yeah.
I'm doing something, I want to be doing only that thing and not distracting myself, because I've heard people say that multitasking is a myth. It doesn't actually exist.
Yeah.
You're not multitasking, you're flipping back and forth between different tasks, right? So I try to pick
Yeah.
one thing and stick to it.
It's really hard to do. Like it's not, it's very hard to do when you really focus on something and like you want to do you have all these other ideas. Like I do that a lot. I have an idea. I'm like, oh, I should be doing this. And then I stop whatever I'm doing. I try working on it and then I go back and then I lose my train of thought. And yeah, it is ideal to be able to focus on just one thing. And that's also what I try to do with my days. Like, okay, this is the goal I want to achieve today. And I'm going to focus on everything that involves like moving forward toward that goal.
Right. And as an entrepreneur, as you said, it involves wearing many hats. So
Yeah.
how do you avoid that kind of like ping pong effect of like I have to do this, then I have to do that, and like doing all of these roles simultaneously?
Hmm.
What's your biggest strategy for I guess focusing on one thing at a time?
Yeah, really just working instead of, I look more at like goals rather than individual tasks for the day. Like if it's something that I need to achieve, like whether it's, I need to work on a specific project for a client, I try to just like focus on that one thing. But sometimes you get a call and other times like there's somebody else who wants to speak to you. And like, I think it's about giving priority to tasks that are urgent, but also drive the most impact. Like I always try to focus on things that are going to drive the most results, right? For example, like LinkedIn is a great platform to build a business, right? So yes, you can have Instagram, you can have Facebook, you obviously need to have your website. But like at the beginning, I was like, okay, what do I focus on? Like, do I focus more time on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or, what about blog? What about a newsletter or a podcast? There's so many different things you need to do to be able to stand out and, promote your business and provide value, right? But really it's about like focusing on whatever brings the most results. That's why like I invest more time in creating content on LinkedIn because for me that brings more results. So focus your energy on whatever brings the highest return.
Great advice. I'd like to talk a little bit more about Dreamstate
Mm-hmm.
specifically and what it is, what the services are that you
Yeah.
provide, and what the company is. So take it
Yeah.
away.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so Dreamstate Agency is a marketing agency. And basically, I provide different services to support entrepreneurs and help small businesses. So that's kind of like my focus. So this involves providing content creation, content design, web design, graphic design, marketing consulting, and also audio marketing. But I'm really focusing on services that like entrepreneurs really need, which is basically trying to save them time so that they can focus on actually working on the business and growing the business. And creating content, as you know, it takes so much time, like
Mm,
graphic design, editing, and a lot of time. The issue is that you're too close to the business itself. So you do have a bias, and sometimes you're not able to think critically from a business perspective and marketing level about what the business really needs. And I faced that myself too. That's why, I always ask external advice. So it is important to have somebody who's kind of like part of your team, but is external and has that external, like unbiased perspective that can help you grow your business. So that's where I come in. And honestly, like I was thinking, oh, maybe I want to work in this specific industry. I love helping musicians. I love helping, and now I'm not really focused on the industry itself because my clients, like, they're from so many different industries, from like real estate, accounting. I work with artists as well.
mhm.
A small portion are also artists, nonprofits. So it's just so vast, but it's really like businesses and entrepreneurs that are in their first years of, building and growing their business. And obviously they don't have huge budgets. And that's one of the main challenges, right? And if they do go and hire like a marketing agency, that's going to be very expensive, like a full-on marketing agency. That's not just like something like Dreamstate, which is basically like a one-to-one service that they're getting. And obviously, like, yeah, budget is a big constraint when you're starting off. And, big marketing agencies, like, they don't give you the same level of attention that you would get from working with a smaller agency like Dreamstate.
Mhm.
It's kind of like they know the strategies that work, they try and replicate them, and they don't really give that one-to-one attention to their client because obviously, like, they have a lot of projects, a lot of big projects coming in all the time, like 20 websites a month, you
Yeah.
know? So the level of attention that you're able to give to the client, to the project, is not the same as a small marketing agency like Dreamstate.
What are the biggest hurdles that you notice from startups or new entrepreneurs that come to you? Are there
Mm-hmm.
particular challenges that you identify that are common to many of them?
Yeah, so sometimes, I hear entrepreneurs say, yeah, I have a website, it's built on WordPress, and I hired this company to build it, but I don't have the accesses, and it's really hard to edit, so I haven't touched the website. It's been 3 years, and it's like, well, like your website is like it's your store. Think of it
Yeah,
like your store, right? So if you haven't touched your website for a few years, or if you don't have access to edit content on your website, like how are you supposed to like promote your business? And like it's something that evolves because your business is going to evolve. Look at Dreamstate. It's evolved over the years into so many different things. And I think now I finally have like a picture of what I want it to be, but like it's always evolving and it will evolve in the next few years. Maybe I'll be adding a few other services, or maybe I'll be focusing more on one or two of the services that I'm currently offering. So it's like it's constantly evolving, right? It's not a static. A business is not static. It's not just this is what it's going to be and it's always going to be that forever.
right.
It's always evolving and changing. So your website needs to be evolving and you need to be able to, update the content. If you don't want to hire a company to do that, you should be able to do it yourself or have that kind of training and knowledge to do it yourself, because it's such an important thing. It's like kind of having a physical store and leaving it like in ruins and dusty, and like who's gonna come into why would clients go in, right? So
Yeah.
you're still using it to attract clients. And also I have spoken to a few entrepreneurs who didn't really understand the value of it. Like, for example, one of the things that I also see is, for example, influencers, they have a big social media audience. But what if tomorrow Instagram shuts down? Or what if, the algorithms change all the time? Like
Mm.
even LinkedIn, like it's a great platform and it's honestly, it's amazing. But the thing is, what if like the algorithms change all the time? Like sometimes my posts like are not performing well. And then that causes a drop in like leads and business, right?
Yep.
So yeah, you kind of do need to have your own platform, and that for businesses, their website, because you can manage that. You basically like it's your platform.
It's what you own.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like your content on other platforms isn't really yours. Once you post it, it's
Exactly. It's actually not yours at all. Like if you think of Instagram, for example, or Facebook, like the content you post doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the platform, and you don't even have any insights on like, okay, who's my audience? Like you do have some insights, but not to a level that like, analytics will be able to show you like who your customers are, where they're coming from. You have limited visibility on your clients, and you don't really have their information. Like you don't have their email, their physical location. Like there's things that you can't gather from information that you just don't have access to from just using social media platforms.
so marketing is obviously a big part of what you do. And the last interview that I did, I spoke to a musician who has a marketing company of his own,
Mm-hmm.
and the way that he defined marketing was interesting to me. And I'm paraphrasing what he said. It's not a direct quote, but it's basically marketing for the purposes of musicians is to present your music to an audience that's already listening to similar things or looking for similar
Mm-hmm.
things. What can you add to that, or do you agree
Yeah.
with that sentiment? How does that apply to other things outside of music?
Yeah, so marketing is about pushing the right message to the right people at the right time. So you need to have a good understanding of who your audience is, where they are, what are the interests. And another important thing is you can't just sell without providing value. So a huge part of marketing should be to first listen, gather information about your audience, what they like, what their interests are, and create content accordingly, provide value. A lot of the mistakes that a lot of entrepreneurs do is they get on a platform, they start selling,
Hmm.
and like, well, you haven't built your reputation yet, right? So marketing is about like building trust, building a community, and then people will come to you for your services. Like it's gonna be a natural like progression of things if they realize that like, oh, like this person like has been consistently like putting out content that I really care about, understands what I'm feeling, what I'm going through, and really like understanding the value that the person can provide. And then that's why a lot of people reach out to me, because it's like the people that do reach out to me, they're interested in my services, and then the marketing would have done that for me. So
Hmm.
if you have effective marketing, then you will be able to get sales. But it's about building that trust with your audience first and foremost, and providing value, because if you don't do that, you're not going to be able to really sell your product and services. And the same thing applies for artists. It's really about providing value and being out there and being consistent. But obviously, like, I understand like a lot of artists like struggle with, they have to create they have to create the music.
Yeah.
That alone takes so much time. So, that's why I do work with some artists to help them out, because, first, because like I said, they're biased, they're too close to the project, so they're not able to think critically about how they should represent it. And secondly, because they're so focused on creating the music that, you know, they do need help from someone external that's going to help them with creating content, designs. So that's why I think, you know, artists, honestly, like I really, you know, I try to give them even like better rates, you know, to help them out, because, you know, I understand that world, and it's really difficult. And, you know, but it's the same applies to every business. Music is a business. So you have to
Definitely.
treat it as such. Yeah.
So content creation is kind of the staple of getting yourself out there
Yeah,
online and having getting eyeballs onto
exactly.
your work. So that's something that you help with, and I'm curious to know what your opinion is of AI within the context of content creation, because
Yeah.
honestly, it's something that I've been dabbling in, and I have
Mm-hmm.
really mixed feelings about it. Obviously, it's a super new thing; it's kind of still in its
Yeah.
infancy. But like for myself, my own purposes, like every podcast episode that I record, I create little clips to share
Mm-hmm.
on social media like TikTok, Instagram, whatever. And I've been doing them myself, kind of like re-listening to my episodes and like highlighting the points that I think are interesting, that I think will provide value to people, and
Mm-hmm.
cutting those out. And then
Yeah.
I've been thinking about, I know that tools exist to kind of automate that process. So I've
Mm-hmm.
been experimenting with some of them, and some of them are amazing. They are honestly very freaky. Like they will
Yeah.
take your 1 hour episode and give you like 15 short clips complete with captions,
Incredible.
everything. It's mind blowing.
It's incredible.
But then I look at the clips and I'm like, well, this isn't exactly like what I would
Yeah.
have chosen, right? You know, like it's great quick fix if you need
Yeah.
something fast, but I don't think that it's there yet in terms of like the quality of the information being put out. I'd
Yeah,
still
absolutely.
rather go in myself and hand select the clips that I think have the strongest messages. So, um, I'm just curious to know your thoughts on AI and how, if there's like the right way to leverage it, or if it's better to do everything yourself. Like where does that fall into place for you?
I think you need both. I think you still need that human element. Even like, for example, like ChatGPT, you can create content, but you don't just like take it and copy paste it, right? You know, you still need to add your own like, you need to personalize it. You can use the technology to help you out and help you automate some of the things, and basically like save up your time. But the thing is, yeah, with AI, like if you just take it as it is, it's not really going to be a good result. So you can leverage the technology to help you out, to save you time. But I think you still need to have that human element to review it, to add your own, because people can tell, you know, like nowadays you look at a post that's created with AI, like you could tell that it's written by AI. There's a certain style, a certain way that's phrasing the words. So, you know, it's becoming evident that it's being used when people just copy paste a post from ChatGPT, or, you know, even some video content that it's like, okay, well, this was clearly created with AI. Like it's great that it's a tool that we can use to save us time, but you still need to have that human element of personalization and putting your own ideas into it. But it's definitely a great tool, and I'm excited now with the text to video that's going to be released. That's
Hmm.
going to be really exciting, because obviously video is the best for the
Yeah.
algorithm. But yeah, a lot of people, like even myself, like I really struggle creating like video content. But if this can help me, you know, edit the video, or even like create a version of me that looks real, and I can
Hmm.
just do a text to video of myself, that would be great. But will it have the human element? I'm not sure it's really going to be 100% be able to represent, to replace us, really.
Yeah, I've heard a common thing that I hear is that the people losing jobs now to AI are
Hmm.
not it's not that AI is replacing everybody's job necessarily, but just those who are resistant to embracing it. Like people who
Yeah,
know how to use AI will have continue to have opportunities, and those who
exactly.
refuse to embrace it are the ones who are going to be left behind.
Exactly. Yeah, I hear that all the time. And I also spoke to a few people that, you know, did lose their jobs, or that were really afraid to lose their job because of AI. And, you know, I think that the people that are afraid need to really understand how they can bring additional value, and what's going to make them irreplaceable is the way, like their originality, what makes them unique, basically.
Hmm.
So I don't think I don't think it's worthwhile to be afraid of, afraid of AI in replacing us, because I don't think that's really going to happen unless you don't really have anything really unique to offer, or unique style, or unique value that you're able to offer. And everyone does. You just maybe haven't looked done some internal like research and figuring out like what makes you unique, what makes you why do people hire you, what are your skills, what are your strengths. I think if you're able to figure that out, I don't think AI can really replace that.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to when the computers and the internet started to replace, paper and pen
Exactly. And
and
people were
typewriter.
freaking out at the time too, right? They're like, oh my God, we're gonna lose our jobs and we're gonna be replaced. But like, no, it just made us more efficient. And I think it's the exact same thing with AI. It's really making us better at, doing things more quickly. And that can only be good, right? I mean, now I think the biggest challenge right now is that there's no excuses. It's like if you're not putting out content, and you're not like, even like if you want to create a business but you think you don't have the time, like listen, you have like great tools now to be able to do that and to help you, right? So I think like if you tell yourself like, oh, I don't have the time, I'm not good at writing, I'm not good at like I'm not a great writer, but like ChatGPT is a great copywriter. So, like it's, if I need assistance with like making a post sound better or make it better written, like you have that support now. So there's really no excuses. So it's really about realizing that like now I think is the best time, if anything, to start a business, because we have so much help from technology.
Right.
So we just definitely need to leverage it and use that to our advantage.
So that's a great point. And despite all of that, I mean, you could interpret the help that we get from technology as
Mhm.
like, not having excuses to get started, etc. And that creates a sense of pressure, I guess.
Yeah.
And so like with the lack of excuses, you really there's no reason not to start, but then it can be intimidating because then you actually have to do something, right? And
Yeah, you need to be consistent too, because you can't just start something and not be consistent. Like it's the only way. The only way to be able to get something to the level where you're actually successful is you need to do it consistently, and results take time. You need to be patient. It's small steps, and you don't always see the results right away, but over time, you know, the compound effect of small little things that you do over time is what's going to drive results. So you don't have excuses, and you have to be you have to be consistent all the time.
yeah, I love that. And one of my favorite sayings is about how every overnight success has like years of hard work behind
Yeah,
it that
there's no
nobody
such
sees.
thing. There's no such thing as overnight success. It's really what you don't see. The hard work that you're not seeing is what's allowing the success to happen. And it's really not overnight. And you need to be so consistent with it, you know?
Right. So
Yeah.
consistency is key. There's also a lot of competition
Yeah,
with, in today's
absolutely.
markets, because the barriers to entry are lower than ever
Yeah.
with all of the
Yeah, anyone can start a business now.
exactly. We have so much opportunity online, but there's also many more people vying for the
Yeah.
same audience. And so like I want to tie that into this idea of like kind of stress that people feel because
Yeah.
there is so much noise out there and it's hard to be seen and everything.
Yeah.
So something that you've posted about is the idea of pressure versus stress. Pressure
Yeah.
being positive, like motivating, and stress being negative and kind of debilitating. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Because
Yeah,
stress is such
absolutely.
a big, huge thing for so many people these days.
Yeah. So when I left my job to start my business, and that was kind of like a scary decision, you know, I can now realize like the difference between, being stressed at work and dealing with, let's say, somebody who doesn't appreciate you, or like a boss who doesn't, who's not a leader and who's just a boss, and you're just, dictating the rules, not really understanding or listening to you. So that was stress. And a lot of people face that in the workplace. But when you're starting a business, it feels more like pressure rather than stress. Stress is more like negative because it gives you anxiety, and then like you're just not feeling well. But I feel like pressure is more like it drives you forward, it motivates you to do better, to achieve your goals. So I think there's a huge difference between stress and pressure. Stress is more like I said, like in the workplace, when you're like dealing with a stressful situation, or like you're not happy. Like not being happy doing what you're doing also does cause a lot of stress. And I feel like pressure is very different from that. And that's what we experience as an entrepreneur. It's really like, it's interesting because it's like, it pushes you forward, and obviously you feel that pressure, but it's good pressure.
Right. it's like the difference between having like an adrenaline rush
Yeah,
when you're trying to do something rather than being scared and terrified and like not being able to move. It's kind of like
exactly. So yeah, it's definitely a different feeling.
so along with the vast amount of competition out there, there's
Yeah.
also an abundance of information, which can
Yes.
also be a source of anxiety. And I know that I feel like that sometimes.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've had to be really conscious and mindful about doing is pulling myself back and like
Yeah.
sometimes taking a break from consuming information because there's
Yeah.
always got to be a balance between your input and your output. You
Exactly.
can't just be consuming, just like you can't always just be producing.
Exactly. And I think also another thing is people look at what other people are doing a lot. Like I've made that mistake too. Like oftentimes I'm like, oh, like this person's like doing great, like making a six-figure business online from online revenue. You don't know how much of that is true. You don't know what that person did to get there, and what they did is not necessarily going to work for you.
Yeah.
So it's really like you have to go out there and try things. And marketing is a lot like that too, where you have to experience things. You have to try things. It's not like this is how it's done. If there was like a universal rule of, this is path to success and becoming an entrepreneur, everybody would be doing it. And it's not that way because it's hard, because there's no like, this is how it's done. It's really like you have to go out there, try things on your own, and you have to be really good at like cutting out the noise, because people, you see everything online, like people are like, oh, everyone's like so successful. Like you see so many like LinkedIn influencers as well that are like, oh, I built a six-figure business, like, in like 6 months, and this is how you do it. And it's like, okay, great, congratulations, but just because they did it this way doesn't mean it's gonna work for you. And I don't know, I am always like skeptical when I hear things like that. It's like, like, did it really happen? Is it marketing? you
Right.
know
Well, so that might be an example of a slightly less, I guess you could say, ethical type of marketing.
yeah.
How do you sort through the BS that you see online? Because I know that like, entrepreneurship is full of big egos,
Yes.
and it's anything that involves money too. It's like, always a competition and a lot of comparison
Yeah.
between people, which can be tough on the morale when you're just starting out. So like, how do you
Yeah,
decipher what's
exactly. I think, like, honestly, if you're a small business and you're an entrepreneur just starting off, like if you set a goal of being able to make, let's say, like two, three, like $5,000 like monthly recurring revenue, like net MRR. So like that is a huge, like that's a huge achievement. You don't have to be making like six figures. You don't have to be making $100,000 a month. And like I think you need to like realize like you need to have achievable goals. And even if you're just able to make like, let's say, $3,000 to $5,000 monthly recurring revenue, that is a huge achievement in itself. So yeah, I think it's about realizing like what's really the goal here. Like, first of all, first and foremost, it should be to do something that you love and that you're passionate about, and that makes you feel like fulfilled and happy. So that should be goal number one. Number two, obviously, you need to be able to make money in this economy. You need to be able to like make a living from it. But the goal of making like this massive salaries, like I think that's what makes a lot of entrepreneurs kind of like discouraged or give up, is because they see this massive success that you don't even know it's real. And then you think like, why am I not getting there? And like building a business takes time. Like a lot of businesses fail within the first 1-2 years of business. Like people, like businesses close very quickly. Oftentimes, like they don't survive the first few years of business. So yeah, I think yeah, it's about like setting the expectation and like kind of block out the noise and realize that like not everyone has the same path, the same journey. And it's okay to try things and fail, and it takes time. Like, and yeah, I just feel like there's a lot of you need to like navigate. Like the internet is a very it's a lot of times it's just appearance.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing to realize. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of big time entrepreneurs
Mhm.
do have failed businesses, because they're
Yeah,
they're
plenty,
they're
plenty.
they're running dozens of businesses at once, and some of them go
Yeah.
under, and then they just move on to the next thing. But I think the important thing to remember is that failure is an opportunity to learn
Yeah,
something, right?
it's a necessary part of it, to be honest. Like, some of the biggest entrepreneurs, like they talk about their failures. They failed often, and the fact that they failed often is what allowed them to find what was in the end was going to be successful. So I mean, I think that's the only way to figure it out. You have to really try and make mistakes and then figure out what works for you. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
about being realistic and not being afraid to make mistakes, which I think it's the hardest part, because nobody likes to say, hey, I tried this and I failed, you know? A lot of the times what people like to talk about is like, hey, I'm super successful and I'm doing great.
Yeah, even when they're not sometimes
Even
as
when they're
successful.
not. Yeah, that's the thing. So, and I feel her like I feel like the people that are most like verbal about saying like, hey, I'm so successful, I'm doing so great, everything is awesome, and I'm making this much money every month. And it's like I feel I'm always like skeptical, because it's like if you are successful, you're not gonna be so loud about it,
Right.
because you know it's always up and down entrepreneurship, right? Like I do believe in the fact that like sometimes people can like send you bad like vibes and stuff. So, you know, it's you really it's yeah, you just really need to be careful about like who you're listening to and really focus on yourself. Yeah.
One of those uncomfortable things about starting something new is that you really have to accept the fact that you're gonna suck. You're not gonna be very
Yeah.
good at the
Yeah,
beginning.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, for
And this
sure.
goes for everything. This goes
Yeah.
for if you're, training at the gym, if it goes
Yeah.
for learning a skill like a musical instrument, and it
Yeah.
must go for business too. So what advice can you give to people to help them get over that fear of looking like an idiot at the beginning, which is gonna happen? Like what can they do to just feel better about getting their feet wet and not worry so much about looking dumb or
Hmm.
bad, because they're going to make mistakes?
Yeah, yeah. So failure is, I always look at it as an opportunity to learn. There's also been things that I've tried and I said, wow, well, that was an epic fail. But if I hadn't tried it, I wouldn't know if it worked. And if I didn't know if it worked, I wouldn't know where to focus my energy on, right? So you kind of have to go through that process of failing and figuring out, okay, like this didn't work. Okay, great. So now I can spend time focusing on what's going to drive most results and what's actually going to work. So, but unless you make those mistakes and you realize what's not working, you're not going to be able to focus on the things that do actually work. So I think it's a necessary part of it. And I know sometimes it's hard because we're always so focused on what everyone else thinks, but we really need to learn to focus on what we think. And even like sometimes as an entrepreneur, like you're very critical about yourself, you're very strict on, you know, your goals and what you want to achieve, but it's failure is just a part of it, you know, and the most successful people have failed many times.
Yeah, and I think
And yeah.
it must get easier with time too. Like
Yeah.
if you have one shot at the basket, for example,
Yeah.
like let's use basketball as the analogy, there's a lot of pressure on you, but
Yeah.
it's like make it or break it. But if you have 10 basketballs and you just sink three of them, at least there's something to feel good about yourself for, right?
Yeah,
So like
exactly. Exactly. Focus on the wins. You don't want to focus on the failure, and the wins happen because of the failures. So it's kind of part of the process.
yeah, it's that Wayne Gretzky quote, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right?
Yeah. Exactly, exactly. But
Um,
unless you try, you can't really know.
Right. So, and fear is what holds people back
Yeah.
from doing these things a lot of the time. And you
Yeah.
shared a great quote that I really loved that I'd never heard before, which is do it or do it scared.
Yeah, no choice.
It's like do it one way or the other. You can be scared or you can not be, but you have to do it anyway. Like that's just a natural part of getting started, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's like there's no point in saying, okay, I can, you know, this is going to be great. I'm going to be great. Like just I'm scared all the time. Like every day I'm like, am I going to be able to do this? And am I going to succeed? Am I like there's always going to be that self-doubt. But you just keep going, and even with the fear and the doubts, and you keep moving forward.
There's something else that I actually really wanted to ask you about this because this applies heavily to myself and just the way that
Sure.
I tend to be naturally when approaching things. The idea of not saying yes to every opportunity that comes your way. I've struggled with this for as long as I can remember
Yeah.
because I always want to say yes to people. I want to agree to do everything. And I try, like historically, I try to do way
Yeah.
more things than I'm actually capable of doing. And sometimes it
Yeah.
burns me. So I need your wisdom for this to help me decipher how can I tell whether something is a really great opportunity for
Yeah.
me? When should I just say no and pass it up?
Yeah. So one thing that I always ask myself is, am I going to enjoy doing this? Because there's no point for me in like starting my own thing, my own business, and end up taking a project that I'm not passionate about. Like, what's the point, right? Might as
Yeah.
well take the risk, be full, like take all the risks, right? So if you're gonna be learning from it, if you're gonna have fun doing it, and if it's going to like push you closer towards your goal, like by all means accept, even if it's, let's say it's a lower budget project, for example, or you know, that's fine. But if it's not something you're going to enjoy, and it's something that's not going to bring any positivity, and you're not going to learn anything, like just those are the types of projects that I would, you know, turn down. Or if there's a specific situation where it's like, you know, it's a project that's not really in your, you know, it's not a fit for the business. It's like, you know, sometimes you also have to turn things down if you want to like focus and specialize in one specific field, because then you want to get more clients in that same industry or the same niche. So, you know, if it's a client that's completely like a completely different industry, or, you know, that's something that I would obviously consider to make sure it's a fit for them and a fit for me also. It's a two-way street.
Yeah, because there's always kind of a balance to be struck between specialization and diversification, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to paint yourself into a corner too much and
Yeah,
be and
exactly,
not have any
exactly.
flexibility, but you do want to be really good at what you're doing, and it's often
Yeah.
easier to do that if you focus on one thing. So like, what's the balance there?
Yeah. So I used to think that like, hey, I can do everything used to be a good thing to say to people,
Hmm.
but that's actually not. Like people want to see specific, they want to be able to like when they hear about you and your services and your business, they want to think, oh, that could really help me, because that's what they do. They focus on helping entrepreneurs in the first few year of business, and they specialize in that. So somebody who's specialized in a specific, you know, niche is more likely to find people that are looking for that specific service. So it's really important to specialize. And I learned that really the hard way. You know, sometimes I used to say that like, oh, I can do so many different things. People don't want to hear that. People
Well,
want to hear, I can do things that can help you in this, this, and this. So really specific.
it's also really hard when you love doing a lot of different things too.
Yeah, it's hard for sure, because I consider myself a generalist. I
Hmm.
have done many different things. I used to be like a one-person marketing team, and I was pretty much doing like everything. But doing everything is not really going to help people find you on the internet, right?
This is
People
true.
look for very specific things when they're looking for a service.
What about just knowing your limits and like not overworking
Yeah,
yourself? Like that's probably another reason to say no to an opportunity if it's going to lead to something like
yeah.
burnout or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things that I recommend to anyone is having a mentor and having somebody who can guide you, who's going to be there to say, hey, you already said you were going to do all these things this week. I think maybe you should say no to these couple of things because you're going to burn out. It's so important. Like if you're a business owner, like whatever it is you're doing in a create, or like, you know, have a creative project or podcast, I think it's important to have somebody, some external advice from someone who's going to say, no, you're not going to take this on. And I have somebody who's doing that for me now. And it's like, it's so great to have that feedback and say like, okay, well, you have enough on your plate this week, you know, maybe let's not do it now, like maybe in the future, right? So I think it's important to have a mentor. I recommend it to any entrepreneur to have somebody that can guide and help grow the business.
Where does one find a mentor in the first place?
So there's this really great organization. It's called Yes Montreal, and they provide coaching services for entrepreneurs. And also like there's so many, like if there's somebody that you look up to that is doing something close similar to what you're doing,
Hmm.
you can always reach out to them and see if they're open to providing mentorship and coaching advice. If it's somebody that, you know, really like is doing exactly what you're doing and has a lot of experience, then, you know, usually like they wouldn't necessarily say no. Maybe they'll obviously like charge they'll charge you for the advice, but yeah, otherwise I think it's fairly easy to find somebody that you look up to that can really guide you and help you out. It's super
Well,
important.
so I know that you have an announcement to make,
Yeah.
and so I won't spoil it for everybody, but you can take it away. I'm pretty excited about it myself, so I'm looking forward to hearing the details.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll be producing a networking event specifically to gather entrepreneurs, to network, collaborate, and sort of like elevate each other. And it ties into what I was saying earlier that, you know, I don't want to just be a service provider. I want to create a community of like-minded entrepreneurs. It's really hard. Entrepreneurship is really hard. So if I can create this like community, and I've been talking like this, like I said, really great entrepreneurs in different industries. I think that's where basically that's the goal of the event. It's called the Dreampreneur networking event, and it's going to be in May. It's going to be at Casa d'Italia on May the 25th. And yeah, I'm really excited to bring together entrepreneurs from specifically from language minorities, so Anglophones and other minority languages in Quebec, as well as women entrepreneurs, which are less than 16% of entrepreneurs are women. welcome to the event. Obviously, everyone's welcome to the event, but that's our goal. And there's going to be prizes. There's going to be networking. It's going to be a really great event.
Oh, cool. Well, if I'm welcome, I would love to join myself.
Of course, you're invited.
That's great. So anybody in Montreal who's available, what's the date again for that?
The 25th of May. It's a
25th
Saturday.
of May.
Yeah, 5 to 8 p.m.
Sounds great. I think that's a natural fit, and it seems like you have a real like proclivity towards doing these events, because I remember from the syncopated noise days with the foundation, live events were like a huge part of it, and you always did great with those. And then we moved to virtual events,
Yeah.
and they were always really good. So I'm happy that you're incorporating that into this business as well.
Yeah, bringing the community together is always it's always been one of my dreams. And like I said, if you can, even just a word of advice sometimes that you hear from someone who's going through the same thing can really push you forward and keep you motivated and driven. So I think it's really important to hear from other people that are doing the same thing, going through the same struggles. Whether it's an artist or, like somebody who's working like an accountant, real estate agent, it doesn't matter. Any industry, anyone is welcome.
Yeah, and I think taking it back to what we started speaking about at the beginning of the podcast with the disconnect that we have
Yeah.
often working from home and not being in physical locations with the same
Yeah.
people, that sense of community has become more important to me. I'm looking for opportunities to actually be with people and see them face to face and interact with them. And I think this sounds like a really great opportunity for that.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the challenges that a lot of entrepreneurs I spoke to told me about, that, there's not too many opportunities to network. Like there's always a need to meet in person, meet other like-minded people. And, I just want to be able to provide that, and an additional event in the city in Montreal where entrepreneurs can come together and learn about other businesses, because you never know. I've been attending events is part of my monthly objectives, to go to as many events, networking events as possible, because you still need that human connection. You still need to be able to go out there and meet other people that are doing the same thing you're doing. And, you'll be surprised at how many opportunities actually you will be able to get from just attending a networking event.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's all that I had on my list of questions. Is there anything that
Awesome.
you would like to add that we haven't had a chance to speak about?
Oh, I think, as usual, Rob, I think you're always we always great chats with you, and really enjoy being on your podcast.
Oh, it's always great having you, and it's great because you're a doer, and I like
Thank
people
you.
who do things. It's always interesting to speak to you. It's always a high energy, motivating conversation. So,
Thank you.
um,
Appreciate it.
yeah, definitely. So good luck with all of this.
Thank you so
I'll
much.
see you at the event in May, and I
Perfect.
hope others will. And if you maybe just let people know where they can track you down online, and
Yep.
remind them about your websites.
Yeah. So dreamstateagency.com is my marketing agency. And then the dreampreneur.ca is where you can find out information about the event. You can subscribe to the newsletter that will you receive an update via email.
Awesome. Great. Well,
Great.
I encourage everybody to check that out, and I'll include those links in the description for the of the video for anybody who's interested.
Perfect. Thank you, Rob.
Awesome. Great. Thanks so much, Alessia.
Thank you.
Talk
Thanks,
again soon.
everyone.